Hey, everybody. Welcome to Beast Over Burden, powered by Barbell Logic. What the fluff? We're going to talk about that today. I'm your host, Nikki. With me is Andrew.
Fluffy McFlufferstein.
Fluffy McFlufferstein.
I'm in full fluff right now.
I loved when Adam Fangman did like strategic weight gain and he called it the fluffening. Right? Weren't you into
The bulkening.
the bulkening?
Yes.
Okay.
Might have been a fluffening as well.
Yeah.
There's the shredding. He goes through the shredding and then the bulkening. And I think a fulkening. Fluffening.
Then he turns into a Vulcan.
Yep.
But yeah, like you were just saying, we're in a little bit of a fluff mode. So we recorded this in January of 2024, which is very helpful right now because feeling a little tight in the pants, a little tight in the waistband. You may have gone up a hole on your belt and you want to not feel like that anymore. So
I can still cram it into the smallest hole. But I do notice that it does float up to the second or third hole unless I really crank it down. But that's how I convince myself that I haven't actually gained any weight.
Smart.
I think we should include the bonus tip of how to put your belt on tighter than it should be.
I hate doing that.
Gripping the belt around the
squat rack
post, and then you just lean all 250 pounds back into that bad boy. Hold on for dear life and exhale, and you will still get to that first hole.
And then you have some great belt muffin top.
The belt muffin top. And I have an incredible picture from peak weight where it is like the biggest muffin top. It's hanging over.
You're like, I'm still at the same hole.
Yep. I think the belt is actually almost covered by the top of muffin.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I've always been a belt muffin bottom kind of body composition because I have no waist. So everything gets smushed to under my belt. It's terrible.
Right.
Anyway, feeling that way doesn't feel very good.
So I'm re-listening to this one because I got to get back into this defluffening.
We're probably going to talk about this in one of our series about how we're leaning out because that's something that we're going to be doing in the spring.
Yep.
So join us for that. Definitely listen to this one because if you're ready to feel different, you have to start here. All right. Have a listen. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Barbell Logic podcast, Beast Over Burden, and welcome to 2024. I'm your host, Nikki Sims.
And your co-host, Andrew Jackson.
And we are coaches at Barbell Logic Online Coaching. Andrew is the COO and product manager for our software, TKC, and I'm the chief experience officer at Barbell Logic.
Happy New Year.
All of our products. Yeah, Happy New Year. It is a great year because it ends in an even number.
Ooh.
I enjoy that.
You prefer even numbers.
Unless it ends in 5. Big fan of that.
Okay.
2025 next year, I'm stoked. 2025, I love increments of 5, and I'm turning 40 next year in 2025. That just makes me happy.
So is May 25th an exciting day for you?
We should plan something to do on 5/25/25. There are probably going to be so many weddings on that day.
5/25/2025. If you go the full year, that's pretty exciting. We will not make it to 5/25/25/25, unfortunately.
But we will leave a legacy.
Someone will be reading Plutarch's Life of Andrew Jackson and laughing about it.
Upon the morn, I sat upon the porcelain throne and scrolled through the telegraph feeds of the Instagrams until my legs fell upon me into sleep and I tripped.
And then he delivered to his group chatteth a meme.
And thus the year began. So it's the second, I think it's the second of the year today when this comes out. And, you know, coming from Christmas, the week of Christmas, New Year's activities, that's usually a really wonderful time to just like enjoy ourselves and indulge a bit and just kind of
bulk.
bulk. You know,
Usually.
we're like, we're hibernating. It's fine. Wearing warm clothes. You
Dark
don't really
at
feel this
4:30.
much. Yeah, it's so dark. But, 2024 rolls around and we're just like, oh no, something must change. And all of a sudden,
The
not
fluff
a
is
fan.
real. Suddenly, you feel like you're keeping it all together.
Someone
then-
takes a video of you.
I don't That's definitely happened to me as well. But it is funny how you feel fine. Like 2-3 weeks, I got this. And then there's just that moment where it
Fun has
seems
a delayed
like
onset effect.
overnight, it just, I don't know if your brain or my brain has like the ability to block it out, just not be aware. But there's some tipping point where it suddenly becomes time to change.
Yeah, it becomes unacceptable. You
Yeah.
become like you've been in probably a surplus for enough time for it to show. And then you might just have like some bloating going on from what you've been eating.
Yeah.
And you're just sitting there. I remember this like happened to me at one point last year, the year before. I was just like sitting on a plane home from a vacation and I just felt my stomach and I was like, I do not like this. This is unacceptable. I'm going to only eat kale for months.
Mine is frequently when I put the seatbelt on. Yes. And it might be a similar
okay.
thing. You put the
Mhm.
seatbelt on and there's just more there than there was before. Or the Hambrick origin story of bending over to tie his shoes and got out of breath,
Oh, okay.
and that's what
Mhm.
motivated him to go to the gym.
Nice. Yeah.
There's
There's
those
a moment
moments
where it's
happen.
unacceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And New Year's is often one of those, for whatever reason, people tend to notice those things, whether it's a lack of fitness, change in
Mhm.
body composition.
Usually compounded by not sleeping very well.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of factors going on.
Yeah. So there is a great way to triage this. I totally know it works. Like you can triage it for a pretty short-term impact to make you feel better.
Okay.
And then there are long-term strategies. But I think it's important to know what the long-term strategies are because if you just only like double down on short-term strategies, I think you end up swinging the pendulum too far in one direction. You end up sabotaging yourself like 2 weeks later.
Yep.
Like you feel the other end of the delayed onset
Mhm.
impact. Like right now, you're in the delayed onset impact of a little too much. And there's also a negative impact to not enough. And you're going to mess
Sure.
with your training. You're going to end up just going in too many different directions if you don't have a good idea of what to do for both
Right.
methods. Mhm.
Yeah, and you get that the noise becomes hard to see the signal of what's working. And you kind of end up feeling like, well, this isn't working. We know that being in a deficit works, but if you can't maintain it or sustain it without that intense white knuckling focus,
Yeah.
you're going to fall off the wagon, as they say, or
Yeah.
bounce all over the place. And
Right.
it's not that nothing works. It's that you're just not doing anything consistent enough for it to manifest in changes.
Yeah. These changes, they need time. And sometimes if it's the potentially wrong change for too much time or for enough time for it to show up, you're just like, crap, well, now I've wasted that time. And we're talking to lifters, like they're not just trying to lose weight. Like you're all trying to train. You're trying to keep building muscle. You're trying to keep feeling good under the bar. And so it's not just as simple as, well, eat less. Like
Right.
that would be great, except that we actually want to use our bodies and be useful. So like you just said, the natural thing is, okay, well, how can we get into a deficit? And then the follow-up question is, how much of a deficit should it be?
Mhm.
And what changes in behavior would support the outcome that you're looking for? And depending on how I think you want to feel in a month and 2 months is really important. Always think about that because the way you're able to train over those 2 months, the way you're able to train really this week and next week will continue to support that vision. So in 2 months' time, are you looking to have lost 5 pounds? Like, are you looking to weigh less in a longer amount of time than just next Tuesday? I
Yeah.
think that really matters.
And also, do you have the right metric? Because you might not weigh less, depending on how your training is going. And that's one of the reasons why Brittany, for example, made her template a fat loss template, not a weight loss template.
That's smart.
Because getting focused on the weight metric, which is a combination of muscle mass, water, and body fat, and all kinds of other tissue in your body, that might not be the right metric to prioritize for everybody.
Yeah. What are some good ones?
Well, I think waist measurement or just tape measurements in general tend to be better for a couple of reasons. One, it doesn't change every day. very rarely.
Yeah.
So it right out of the gate puts you into looking at a metric that's longer term focused. It's a lagging indicator of behavior changes that have usually been in place for weeks at a time.
Yeah. Stepping on the scale usually leads to very reactive emotions and activities. Yeah.
It's not to say that weight can't be a metric. Certainly somebody who's in a caloric deficit is likely to lose weight, but it's got noise in the signal because you have other things going on. If you are going to track weight, I would say to do a rolling 7-day average so that you eliminate some of that noise. Some days are going to be a little bit higher, lower, and you don't really want to react either.
That kind of actually helps, what's that called? Like exposure therapy, where, sometimes if you only step on the scale like twice a month,
Totally.
every time you do it, you're just like, oh my God, this is different than I thought.
Right.
You could feel amazing. Then you step on the scale and all of a sudden you feel terrible about yourself.
Yeah.
But like the more you do it, the more you're able to see everything else that goes along with your life in addition to that one moment of stepping on the scale.
I've seen it go both ways. Like some people just are so neurotic, and I don't say that in a demeaning or a negative way, but just higher on the neurotic kind of personality trait, can't step on the scale every day.
And that's fine.
It will just drive them insane.
Yeah.
And so, if you can expose yourself, and I've been there too, like I've got the bathroom scale right in the bathroom, and first thing in the morning, I just check it.
I like that you have to just start up the difference between a bathroom scale and a scale in the bathroom.
Well, bathroom scale, when that came out of my mouth, did not make any sense. What am I measuring the bathroom?
What are you weighing?
But the scale that happens to be located in the bathroom, because that's where I'm frequently not wearing any clothes right before my first shower of the day.
Thank you for all of this.
It becomes a convenient place to get a weigh-in first thing in the morning without any extra things on.
Or in.
Yes. And often out.
Yes.
Recently. So, I've gotten to the point where I have zero reaction to seeing the number other than, oh, that's interesting. Okay. And the other thing that I do is that for me at 250 pounds, I look at whatever numbers on that scale and I just guard band it with plus or minus 5 pounds.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like, plus or minus 5 pounds.
Because that's how much you can normally fluctuate.
Yep.
Meaning there was fat loss or fat gain.
Within the same day.
Yeah.
I've seen the scale in the morning be 5 pounds lighter than at night, or I'll weigh the night before. First thing in the morning, it's easily sometimes 5 pounds lighter.
Totally. Especially if we've had like a really salty soup for dinner.
Something like that. So that's another way, I think, just as a mind game to, take emphasis or any kind of meaning out of whatever the scale says today.
Yeah.
Anyways, the original question was metrics is, I always track weight and waist because I think that gives you kind of a near term and a long term metric. And the weight tends to lead the waist in either direction. You can go up for a while and the waist won't really move. And then all of a sudden the waist will start ticking up and vice versa. Or sometimes the weight can stay fairly consistent and you'll see waist start to come down. But
what's happening when that's going on?
Recomposition, you're holding on to, like if it's a slow enough weight loss, you might not see a ton of weight coming off. Or it could be somebody who has more body fat and is earlier in their training.
Yeah.
Where they're actually putting on significant amount of muscle mass while losing body fat. But in fairness to probably 90% of the scenarios I've seen, weight is going to go up or down 2 to 4, maybe 6 weeks before the waist follows.
Slow, patient change.
Yeah. And there's this interesting, almost like momentum to it, where if somebody can consistently start driving the weight up or down, then you see the waist turn and then it'll start to kind of go, it'll sort of track the weight. And then as the weight flattens out at some point where they can't cut anymore, then you'll see the waist sort of taper off as well. But
definitely hitting home how time and consistency are so important.
We're talking
to drive that.
If you are serious about making meaningful, sustainable changes, we've said this many more times, whether it's strength training or body composition changes, the timeline you want to be thinking about is 6 to 12 months, honestly. Yes, you can see some near-term changes in less time. In certainly 1 to 3 months, things will start to change, but it might not necessarily be sustainable. you're probably not going to achieve your goal in 3 months, which is why, we've made our money back guarantee that 6-month window, right? Like that's where you're really going to see the identity changes that lead to the habit change that lead to the outcome.
Yeah. It's almost like teaching your body how to fish.
Yeah.
Like it's not just, let's stick a Band-Aid on this and make you feel better.
Right.
It's like, let's teach you how to feel better for a really long time.
So you said you had a method.
Yeah.
So we've talked about metrics, how you would look at the outcome. What are the behavior changes that you go to when you're feeling like you've tipped over?
Like what we can assume, what I can generally assume is that there's likely been a caloric surplus on most days. Maybe not all the time, because you might end up eating foods that make you so full that you end up only eating once or maybe twice a day when you normally graze throughout the day. So, but probably on average, there are foods that you don't eat very often and an overall surplus that have made you feel fluffier and bloated.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because what I'll see with a lot of people that struggle to change their body composition, Monday through Friday are locked in. And then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are completely blown out.
Totally. And that's still a surplus.
Yeah. We had a podcast episode a couple weeks back where we talked about number of days that are kind of outside the norm.
Yes.
And during the holidays, there's typically more of those days. So even if you were on your normal, quote unquote, days, eating like you do normally, there's more opportunity to have those blowout days.
Yep.
And I'm probably being a little melodramatic even calling it blowout, but just a caloric surplus day.
Yeah.
A more day. And then you come back into the new year. And even if you go back to your normal Monday through Friday, you're still carrying the overhead from all the extra days in December, November.
It still happened. Like those calories are still there.
And you still have your weekend days that are over the top. So there's just all you've done. And this is what you see with the American population in general, is that gradual accumulation of a few pounds a year, because there's never the deficit. You're just always gradually getting the more days.
Yeah, there's never a long enough deficit.
A long enough deficit, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So what I think is useful is knowing and kind of acknowledging like, okay, I was probably in a surplus. Now I need to stabilize and get into a deficit if that's what I want. Sometimes even trying to stabilize puts you in as much of a deficit as you need. So the first step is stabilizing.
Yep.
And we've talked about that before. And that can come from going back to eating like how you were before the holidays. I have gone through time periods where I like weighing and measuring and times when I don't. And lately I've been finding it really helpful, because my behavior without weighing and measuring would be to, in this phase, to actually significantly undereat during the week.
Interesting.
And then I'll have a really big day on the weekend or two. And then I'll have actually no idea if I've actually been in a deficit.
Right.
So it's helpful for me to know that I'm actually eating enough to not make me starving by the time the weekend rolls around. Because I'm very active. Like, I lead a really active lifestyle. So by the time it's Saturday, Sunday, I usually, if I'm in too much of a deficit during the week, I'm so hungry and I'll feel like I have permission to eat anything. And then that might actually just put me right back into a little bit of a surplus.
Right. Because let's say you were a 100-calorie deficit Monday through Friday. It's only 500 calories.
It's not that much.
One RX bar.
Yeah.
Too many.
Yeah. Yeah.
One
easy.
glass of milk, depending on the fat percentage. But yeah, it really doesn't. It's not like your Sunday is all you can eat buffet, quote unquote cheat meal. Maybe you're eating Thai food or having a pizza or something like that. But it's not like you're just completely going off the rails. But all it takes is potentially one slice of pizza, more than you would have eaten had you been tracking.
Yeah. So then I feel like I'm working really hard for 5 days and rewarding myself and really totally negating what I was after.
Right.
So I think finding that stabilization and getting back into, like, I've been weighing and measuring before the holidays. I'm going to get back to the same numbers I was shooting for and make sure that I'm hitting that average and do it for a couple of weeks. And then after,
if I see how your body changes,
to see how my body changes. And then if I need to pull out another 100, and it is that small, that's what I'll do. And it's that small because it's important to be able to train. And in fact, what I even talked about with my coach is like, if I need to pull more calories, I will actually pull the extra activities that I do, like spin class and like the extra kind of air quotes exercise that I do, so that I can keep prioritizing the strength work that I do. So it's not add more exercise, it's actually pull some exercise so that I can prioritize muscle and training sessions.
Reducing your calories?
While reducing some calories.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I know a lot of us will think, okay, more exercise, fewer calories. But because I want to feel good while I'm training, I actually start selecting the exercise that I want to be ready for. And so the short term would be like, however you're going to stabilize, it's like go back to the behaviors that you know are making you feel good. And if you don't know, this is a great time to figure out what those are. And the eating behaviors that I think really work for that are single ingredient foods, low sugar, cut out alcohol. It's a poison. It doesn't do anything good for you. I know it tastes great. I love it too, but cutting it out, you will feel so much better. Like bloat goes down, cravings change, sleep improves. Cut out alcohol, get as many meals from single ingredient foods as you can. High protein, like that would mean like 1 or 2 palm-sized servings of protein on every meal that you're eating, and eat frequently throughout the day. Like don't get yourself into periods where you're really hungry. Like keep yourself not like full, but keep yourself fed. If you can avoid those times and you're just starving, that's helpful for the long run.
Now, these are, for some people, might be drastic changes. Do you think that's sustainable right out of the gate for 6 months or a year?
No, I think the triage is a few to several days of low to no sugar, single ingredient foods, no alcohol. And that's kind of enough to, I'll use the word detox, but you kind of feel like you've done a detox. You'd really de-bloat and you kind of get a better read on, you know, what being hungry feels like and what food tastes like. When you're like hammering sweets and sugar and like high fat foods for a while, your palate's kind of, it needs more. And when you go back to single ingredient, low to no sugar, thing like strawberries just taste so freaking good because it's just such delicious sugar. And if you haven't been eating, you know, like Christmas cookies in a while, the strawberries are just the best thing you'll ever eat.
Yeah.
In a good way.
So this is not the long-term strategy. This is the reset baseline, resensitize yourself to what it feels like to eat in a way that's closer to your needs.
Yeah.
And
de-bloat. It'll
allows
de-bloat
you to
which feels
just
good.
Feel better, sleep better, remember what it's like to not feel that over the line feeling that got you wanting to change in the first place. Yeah. Totally agree. I think we called it snapping back, and depending on how far you are over that line of where you prefer, it can take different amounts of time.
And how much muscle you have and how lean you are going into
your
it.
metabolism.
Like if you're already kind of lean and you have a lot of muscle, you'll get there really fast.
Quick. Yeah, for sure.
Which is worth pursuing.
Are all things that I would definitely recommend. The conversation that I keep having more and more with clients is, first, how serious are you? Real talk. And then second, if it's that serious, because most of them are like, I'm serious. This needs to change. I'm like, okay, stop drinking.
Yeah.
And they know it.
Changes.
They know it.
We all know it.
I know it too. And of course, I don't always, I'm not saying indefinitely, although probably wouldn't hurt. But it's not just the alcohol. It's the cascade of choices and impacts after the drink. Because, the client I was just talking with last week, he's like, I know. I just can't have one. I'm not wired that way. And I find that to be true with a lot of, or certainly with I've actually, to your point about resensitizing, one of the things I notice is when I go through, a week or two of rebaselining, I am able to get back to, okay, one drink, that's plenty.
Yeah.
I feel fine. And then I don't have that cascade of food choices, sleep impact, needing to eat a ton of dessert just to like get the same sensation. I definitely think there's something to be said for that reset so that you can then start adding things back in. But the way they get added back in is totally different.
And the reason for adding them back in is different.
Yeah. Because I'll go through periods of time where it's like, I feel like I have to work up to 3 drinks just to even have the the experience of having a drink.
Making it relax you or giving you that little bit of fun buzz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then after a little bit of a reset, one cocktail is like, whoa, I'm feeling this one. But the near-term conversation with most of my clients lately has just been, look, if you're serious about this, 0 drinks.
Yeah.
Until you hit a point where you feel good about where you're at.
And we were talking about that, how when you measure and you're entering alcohol, you see it.
Right.
You see how significant it is. And when you're still trying to stay within your calories, and you want to have a couple drinks, you can't eat as much. And that makes you feel terrible.
Yeah.
Like I remember making those choices and I really felt terrible.
Yeah. I think if you are weighing and measuring, that would probably be the one strategy that I would say you don't have to be quite so black and white about it. Because like when I did my big weight loss 3 years ago, I drank through that period of time. I was weighing and measuring for most of it and literally had the
measuring cup
out or the scale out for my whiskey.
Yeah.
And typically only drank whiskey actually during that period of time. I wasn't doing a whole lot of beer and I was still able to accomplish my goals. But for most of my clients, they're not weighing and measuring.
Yeah.
Or don't have the ability to. Like this individual goes on a lot of work trips and they're at the bar. It's like part of the social environment. Yeah. And, you know, it's just one of those things where you're at the bar after the big meeting and you have one drink and then it's 4 drinks and they're usually late at night. And then his sleep is jacked. And then he's traveling the next day. And then it's just the cycle that...
Control what you can control. Do the best that you can with what you can.
And it's actually easier for him to just be able to say, I'm not drinking right now. So anyways, didn't mean this to turn into the don't drink podcast, but it really is the lowest thing. It's
unavoidable. Yeah.
If you're serious about making these changes, you've got to, at a minimum, measure it, I would say, or limit it to 1 or 2 per week or eliminate it.
Yeah, that's the first thing, like you said, the first low-hanging fruit. And then after that, I think you can kind of open the door to, okay, do we want to do like serving size guidance? Precision Nutrition does really well with that, where it's about having a certain number of palm size or palm size for protein, fist size for carbohydrates, handful for like starchy carbohydrates, and thumb size for fats. And that's a good visual tool where you can prescribe how many of each to have based on goals. Or if you want to do weighing and measuring. If someone's really like, I want to lose 10 pounds by this day, I'm like, we're weighing and measuring. Sorry, I'm assigning you macros. We're going to try it this way because it's the most accurate way for us to know if they're actually in a surplus or a deficit, and we'll get them where they want to get sooner.
One of my clients is using our new fat loss template.
Oh, yeah. This is a new thing that we're coming out with.
First time he's ever done the hand portion, always done his cuts with weighing and measuring. He dropped 14 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
And like 1.5 inches in 8 weeks.
Okay. Well, I'm excited about this template.
Yeah. I mean, he's very disciplined, obviously strength training, doing some HIIT stuff in there as well, but he's loving it.
Yeah.
And I think if you can wrap your head around the portion size, and I tend to find this to be true, that people that have weighed and measure are great candidates for going into the hand measurement.
Good point.
Because they've got a little bit more of a sense of how things, like what 8 ounces of protein looks like, or what 40 grams of carbs look like.
And what it feels like when you eat it.
What it feels like, exactly. Yeah. So I think it's easy to point at an anecdote and say, well, look at this guy. Perfect. And a lot of people do it, but I do find that having weighing and measuring experience translates better.
So it's, I guess the learned behavior is, or it's like having an awareness of what calories come with what sizes of foods. The classic one is like actually weighing out what a tablespoon of peanut butter is.
That's the game changer.
Yeah.
That will forever change your perception of reality.
And what 1 glass of wine counts as, which is 5 ounces, which is terribly small.
Yeah. Or a 2-ounce pour of whiskey.
Yeah.
Like when you're used to doing the fingers.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was 2 fingers.
Yeah.
Oh, actually that was 8 ounces of whiskey.
Yeah.
That was a 20-ounce Negroni.
That's a 20-ounce Negroni. My favorite recipe. So I think that comes from weighing and measuring, is you see the caloric impact of foods. And that's really important because it's the tiny sneaky ones like booze and peanut butter and stuff that is really high in calorie, high in fat, that, you cook with oil. 1 tablespoon of olive oil is nothing. It's hardly anything. And that has 14 grams of fat in it.
If I really had to get serious, that would probably be my next low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty liberal with the oil.
Yeah.
Because it's good.
Because it's delicious.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it really makes cooking way better all the time.
Yeah.
Like, you really can't go wrong with adding more fat. It changes delicious. The texture. It makes things more flavorful.
Crispy.
Man, we just totally derailed.
Anyway, food's good.
Start talking about.
And actually, here's our weight gain plan for you.
Butter. Like, as I've gotten into more cooking, there's never a scenario where I'm like, I wonder if I should add more butter. I wonder if that'll make it better. And it turns out not to be better. Like, it's always better.
And one of our first ideas that we had is like, what if we used bacon grease?
Yeah. I mean, it came from watching a lot of cooking shows too.
Uh-huh.
And I'm always like, man, I don't get it. How come everything I cook is always stuck to the pan, tastes dry? And then you go watch Gordon Ramsay.
Pioneer Woman or Paula Deen.
Or even Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah.
That dude will put like half a stick of butter on his eggs without even batting an eye. And you're like, and he's like, oh, if you really want to add the crispy brown edge, that, oh yeah, just sprinkle butter all around the outside of the pan.
Delicious.
Yeah. Or you're cooking a steak with tons of marbling on it, throw some more butter in there. Spoon it on top.
Yep. And this is why going out to eat is really tough when you're trying to lose weight.
Oh, yeah,
because they're doing that. Because the motivation for restaurants is to make it taste good.
100%.
And make you want it.
Yeah.
So how do we do this and still enjoy our lives?
Well, like you said, the Hawthorne effect of just measuring, what you measure will change. The Hawthorne effect for dummies. And from that baseline, then you can start adding things back in, I think, is kind of how I think it makes it sustainable. I think two things. One, the awareness that you talked about, resetting the baseline, which allows you to make more intentional decisions and add those things back in a way that you can actually enjoy.
Yeah.
Because you've reset the baseline and because you're not coming from a place of no awareness or just not being conscious of what it is that you're doing. I think that's what makes it sustainable for a couple of reasons. One, you actually enjoy it when you add it back in instead of it just being there.
It's like just a habit of more.
Right.
Which is not always enjoyable. It's enjoyable sometimes, but then it just becomes a weird habit.
Right. Like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
You know, it's just because that's what I do at 4:00 every day.
Right.
I always have a beer at the end of the day. Or like for me, it was, I would walk in the door and we had these mason jars of, I've talked about this before, like almonds and cashews. And I just grab a couple handfuls of nuts and a string cheese out of the fridge and usually a beer. Why? That was my habit of eating and drinking 1,000 calories.
That was your unwinding day.
That was just, and then that had not even registered in my mind as eating.
Mm-hmm. It's not a meal.
No, I'm just having a little snack.
It's just an after school snack.
And so it's 1,000 calories that wasn't even registering in my brain.
Man.
And then I would sit down for my meals and like, oh, well, you know, it wasn't like I was eating crazy meals, but also the portion sizes. I think the portion size habits is where the weighing and measuring is a game changer.
Yeah.
Because you just, at least for a big guy like myself, you don't realize how much you're getting. Like what you've become accustomed to as a normal plate or 2 plates, if you go for seconds, is just way more than you think it is. And it is a little bit sad.
It is.
When you start weighing and measuring and you're like, this is 8 ounces of meat.
And like how many egg whites you have to eat to make them worth integrating into your diet.
Here's where the game changer, though, is, I think, that has even more profound effect long term, is that in order to make those meals filling and enjoyable, often is adding in more vegetables.
More crunch, more time to eat the meal.
Yes. And learning how to cook things that you might not used to be able to eat. So like if a meal that you're used to is a big plate of meat and potatoes, no vegetables, and then you go to actual weighing and measuring what your meat and potatoes should be, that is not much on the plate.
Yeah.
And the only way to counteract that is to start filling in and figuring out how to make veggies taste good.
Yeah.
Add in more seasoning. And that becomes challenging because it is a new skill set that people have to learn, new behaviors, new shopping patterns. That's where, getting some coaching might be helpful, or outsourcing it to prepped meals is why a lot of people go that direction.
And one kind of hack is grocery delivery, if you can do it. Because instead of going to the grocery store where all the marketing is shoved in your face and you might be hungry and used to the way you move through the grocery store when you're looking for new foods, the grocery store can become kind of stressful and you'll end up just being like, well, I'll just grab this Pringles can.
Well, especially if you go through the aisles.
Yeah, if you go through the aisles. But if you do it online, you know exactly what to get because you have recipes in mind. You have foods that you're shooting for. You're not doing it while you're hungry.
Yeah.
And it also saves you a bunch of time so that you don't have to end up in a moment where you have no food in the house. It helps you plan ahead. Yeah,
that's a bit more of a can of worms that opens up, I suppose, for making things more sustainable.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people just struggle to eat veggies. It's like they don't
They take
like
a long
it.
time.
They don't know how to prepare
They
it.
don't add to your macros in a way that makes you feel like, oh, that was worth
I'm
it.
doing something.
Yeah.
But it does add a ton to your fiber.
And I think they just makes you feel good. Makes me feel good when I eat veggies. Yeah.
I don't think I finished this thought. I said there was 2 things I think that happens by doing that weighing, measuring, and rebaselining is that when you then start to add things back in, you feel in more control to be able to take them out and get back to your baseline, which I think is part of making things more sustainable, is not feeling like you need to maintain some perfection. And that if you're not in that state, bad. And if you're in that state, good. It's that you're in wherever you are and you know how to change.
It's another infinite game.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Love it.
So,
well, I think it's okay to be feeling how you are. I really hope people enjoyed themselves during the holidays. I think it's worth just having a good time and, not doing it more for more, but, enjoying yourself. And also know that you can feel different. Let yourself take some time to get there. Don't expect yourself to be different in 2 weeks in a significant way. Give yourself some time. Be consistent with what you choose. We have an ebook online, barbelllogic.com/7 nutrition strategies. I believe that's what it is.
Nice.
Yes.
Good recall.
Thank you. We're going to be launching this product later this year. More details to follow, but the template that Andrew was just speaking to, we're going to be releasing some of those to our strength clients later this year that we're pretty excited about. And I think that's it.
One other exciting thing I wanted to put out there, a teaser. Next week, we're going to have the man, the myth, the legend, CEO,
the source of the Reynolds exaggeration,
and founder, Matt Reynolds.
Yeah.
We haven't booked him yet, but we're hoping he's listening to this.
Or it will be an AI generated conversation with Matt.
We should ask our producer if we could do that. That would be hilarious. We are going to invite Matt on next week to talk about 2023, look back, and what's coming in 2024.
Yeah.
So, Matt, if you're listening, looking forward to talking to you next week.
Yeah. And thanks for listening today. I hope you have a really good 2024 and get what you want. And if you have questions about Barbell Logic online coaching, I would encourage you to set up an experience call with us, barbelllogic.com/experience. And we'll see you here next week.
Bye-bye.